All right, let's talk about some risk factors when it comes to arbitrage betting. In theory, when you place an arbitrage bet, you're taking all the risk out, but there's a few things that you need to keep in mind before this happens. The biggest risk is lines change before you can place both bets. You could put one side of the bet in, and this side could all of a sudden change. This price could turn into like a minus 150, and all of a sudden, your ARB is no longer profitable, and you're in a position where you might have to take a loss. Another common thing that'll happen is you're trying to place the hedge bet and it'll lock. So you're kind of in limbo for a second. It might open and you might be fine, or it might open and the odds might be totally different. This happens frequently when you're live arbitrage betting. It'll leave you in a position where you need to adjust accordingly. Another common thing that happens is you're placing an arbitrage bet and you get spun. This is where you place a bet. If you look at the screen right now, it takes time for these live bets to go through. So sometimes you'll place one bet and another bet, and they start spinning. It's when they're processing for the bet to go through. Sometimes the line will shift while you're getting spun, and the bet will not go through. These are common things that leads to arbitrages not being executed correctly. Another common mistake is you're just moving too fast. It's important to stay calm and double check what you're doing. What's worse than missing a big ARB is messing it up and taking twice the loss. It's very common that you accidentally place the same bet twice. For example, if I'm moving too fast, I might place the same side twice. Let's say I put $10 on the Reds here on the minus 1.5, and on DraftKings, I also place it on the minus 1.5, when you're supposed to put it on the plus 1.5. This can happen when you're moving fast and your adrenaline's going. It's important to stay calm and double check what you're doing. Another common risk is going over your limits. For markets like player props, it's easy to place bets that are a little too high. This will leave your account open to getting trader reviewed. If you place a bet that's too high, it'll immediately go to their trading team and they'll review your account, which can lead to limits or your bet not going through. Another risk factor is hitting ARBs twice. If you place an arbitrage bet and it's still hanging there after you place it, never hit it again. The worst thing you can do is place the same bet twice because it immediately makes your account look suspicious. Another risk to consider is when bets void. Sometimes you'll see an ARB that's predetermined. That's like somebody hit a home run in a game, but FanDuel hasn't caught up to the fact that they hit a home run. So you place a over on them hitting a home run. They can void that after the fact. So it's important to make sure that you keep this in mind when you're placing some bets. Sometimes you can hit a line that's so broken that they can manually void it at the end. This is especially dangerous when you have already placed an ARB and one side gets voided. It leaves you exposed on one side completely. Other things to keep in mind are withdrawing funds out of your sportsbook automatically trigger a review of your account. So if you're arbitrage betting, it's important to wait as long as you can before you withdraw funds. It's important to also think about sportsbook specific risk factors. By that I mean if you're using offshore books to arbitrage bet, they do not have the same regulations as US books do. Keep that in mind because they can void at their own discretion. The other thing that's important to keep in mind is prediction market sportsbooks. These markets are based on liquidity, so it's important to check how much liquidity is in a market before you place a bet. Another risk factor is getting greedy. You might not think this will happen to you, but you might place one side of an arbitrage bet that's so broken that you don't think you need to hedge it. And in sports, anything can happen. You got to bet with your own risk tolerance, but if you get too greedy, things can shift in the game and you can lose everything. So it's important to stick to your personal strategy. And of course, the last risk factor is getting your account limited. This is very common and it will happen to you eventually if you're in the arbitrage space. Whenever you're placing bets on lines that might be broken or you have an edge on them, eventually the sportsbooks will catch up to you. So it's important that you try to take steps to mitigate this risk, and that's what we'll touch on later in this course.